All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Alan K Show, and we here today with none other than super fortunate to have him on my podcast. By the way, guys, huge fan of his, Mr. Brian North.
Thank you.
Formerly of North & Co.
You got it.
Now Compass.
You got
Compass
it.
Realty.
Yep.
Man, how does it feel? Like to say like North & Co. in past tense.
It's a mixed bag. It really is a mixed bag. One hand, like the first thing, like I listen to my body, right? And the first feeling is a little bit of weight. Like it feels still, my chest feels tight. It's very new. It's 2.5 weeks, right, since we closed. And it's still, my chest feels kind of tight. I feel a little bit tense and kind of heavy about it. And it's because I'm still really processing the whole thing. But then the next thing that kind of popped into my head after just kind of feeling my body is like, I'm proud. You know, I'm really proud. Mm-hmm. We created something super unique in the industry. You know, in the state of Arizona, there's plus or minus 3,000 brokerages, including mom and pops, all the way up to the biggest big box brokerages. And so to say that in an 8-year period of time, we created something that if you're in the industry, you could say it's a standalone, not better or worse than anybody per se, but just it's its own thing, right? It's recognizable in the sea of 3,000. Yep. To know the difference that we've been able to make in people's lives and the difference that they don't know, in a lot of cases, they've been able to make in my life. And then to be able to have that translate to our customers is something I think every business owner desires to do. And so for me, there's definitely a lot of pride in that, and seeing the way that our agents have responded, and unfortunately the way that these types of transactions work, it's a surprise to most. And seeing how they've responded and how much trust there is, tells a story about the legacy that we've all left with each other, which is really great. So it's exciting, but I'm still doing. There's a lot of emotion to work through and a lot of surprise emotion. So it's a good time.
Well, listen, congratulations on that. We're going to talk about that hopefully in more detail, but. For those individuals that are not familiar with Brian North, can you give us a quick rundown, the overview of Brian North and North & Co.?
Yeah. The quick overview of Brian North is Brian North is I am addicted to growth, and that isn't more. That's just better. It's just being better. Every single minute of the day, my brain is computing like Intel Pentium 1000 processor of like, where am I weak? I'm constantly going like, where am I weak? Like, is it my health and wellness, my relationship, my communication, my patience with my kids as a father? Am I being gentle on myself at the right times? But am I pushing myself hard enough? Can I do more? And so really that translates into all areas of my life. If you start with that thing of just wanting to be better every day, I mean, can I be better at watching TV, and it's a funny thing. Instead of like beating myself up, it's like, hey, can I just relax?
Can I improve?
Is that okay?
Right.
I mean, it's just in all areas. And so there's that part as it relates to the brokerage. I really wanted to create, I have this thing in my mind. It's not for anybody else, but it's kind of my secret. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was my favorite movie as a kid. And I literally identified and thought I was Charlie Bucket. I believed in my body that I could find the golden ticket. I believed it was possible. And as I matured and became an adult, I realized that I thought a little bit more like Willy Wonka, than I did the kid Charlie Bucket. And this thing was creating a chocolate factory. I wanted to create a place where people could come and be fully themselves and be accepted if they were willing to play at a high level professionally. I didn't care if you had neck tattoos or if you wore 4 Rolex watches, or if you drove a Lamborghini or a Volkswagen bus. If you wanted to be a professional and you wanted to be the best you could possibly be, I wanted to create an environment that fostered that both creatively, where like you could come in there and it was an environment, right? It was like that first scene that you walk into the chocolate factory and the music starts playing and they're scooping marshmallow cream and there's a chocolate river, and like that kind of whole thing for me was what I wanted to create in the industry. I felt like it was very stale out there, and that's what I set out to do.
Yeah, yeah. When did you start your brokerage? 2015, I think.
So
right?
I acquired a brokerage that was having a hard time in 2014.
14,
yeah,
right.
and
Okay.
then I rebranded that and launched North & Co. December 2nd, 2015.
2015.
Yeah.
So almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, got it. All right. So how were the first the first 12 months or so, 12 to 24 months with the brokerage?
I mean, it wasn't a lot different than
Yeah.
what my life was like at that time. I mean, the one thing was that the brokerage that we acquired had 30 agents.
Yeah.
So I already had a pretty good jump start,
Were
right?
they like producing agents or like a mixed bag?
Yeah, for them, it was
Yeah.
pretty solid. I
Yeah.
mean, for the most part, because the former owner was more an investor than he was an agent, like
Yeah.
a resale agent. So at least most of the training and education was around what I would call, high level real estate IQ, right? Versus like how to prospect and how like those sorts of things. It was really about, fundamental investing strategies, how to wholesale a deal, how to underwrite, in a standard kind of buy box so we
Yeah.
could exit or buy deals together, things like that. So for the most part, once you get that stuff kind of wired, teaching people how to go meet people is kind of easy actually.
Yeah.
And so fundamentally a pretty good batch of agents. And then I was, doing like 40, 50 million in sales at
Yourself.
the time, right?
Yeah.
And that really funded, if there was a loss in the brokerage, I was funding that with my sales. And if there was a win in the brokerage, I was realizing the win.
Yeah.
The brokerage was really, for me in its infancy, was not an exit strategy type relationship. It was just the next iteration of a team.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was like solo agent, build a team, what's next? Brokerage. And then an opportunity presented itself, and I did the thing I said I would never do,
Yeah.
which was own a brokerage.
Yeah.
But I remember our first month, we were profitable by $4,000. So our expenses were $50,000 a month for the brokerage, and we made $54,000 that month. And I was like, I don't know how many startups make money in their first month. Scary.
Yeah.
Super
And
scary.
that's with 30 agents,
Yep.
right? And how big was your staff at that time?
4. Yeah, so we had a DB, operator, front desk, myself. That was our staff.
So you absorbed, did you buy it or you absorbed the brokerage?
Bought it. I mean,
you
I-
bought it.
Hybrid. I mean, I didn't pay very much for it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was losing a lot of money,
losing money.
and I bought the furniture. Literally, I bought the hard assets.
So it was losing money, but then like the first month that you took over, like you
No,
already made...
so actually, great question. So I bought it in April 15th of 2014, and it had lost $105,000 in that first quarter. Okay, and then from that moment through the end of this, so in the last 3 quarters of the year, we lost 32,000. Yeah, so lost 32,000. So
Yeah.
that felt really good. That
Yeah.
felt like a win.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think about the first month as January of 2016 for North & Co. Right, which
Got
is
it.
funny the way my brain thinks.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
it was like this thing was kind of a mess.
Yeah.
We had to fix that thing. But
Yeah.
then I rebranded in North & Co. and like now it's mine. Like,
Yeah.
this is my
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And in that first month, that's when we made $4,000.
That's when you made $4,000.
$4,000.
Gotcha,
But that
gotcha.
we lost $32,000, and we knew. I mean, that felt like a victory
Yeah.
to go from losing $100,000 in a quarter to us totally losing $32,000 over the next 3 quarters. That felt really good to us.
But you were still losing money though.
Still losing money.
And there are a lot of people out there when they're just not seeing those results quick enough,
Yeah.
right? Especially they have to constantly like putting in the money and covering the expenses and everything like that. They kind of almost like at times give up or they retreat and they go back into their comfort zone
Yeah.
and kind of do the things that they did back in the past, whatever it is that made them more money.
You got it.
Like what were you doing in that situation to really kind of continue for you to, I guess, to overcome all the instabilities, the finances, and just kind of continue to push through? I mean, what were you doing at that time? How you were dealing and how you were able to like handle the
2 things.
stress?
Trusting Stephanie, Anne-Marie, and Michelle. Stephanie is my operator, Anne-Marie CFO, and at the time was just my CPA, but
Okay.
she was operating in a pseudo CFO type role. She was just, she was outside the company. We were paying her as a contractor at the time, and then my designated broker. My designated broker, I was like, you deal with the problems. I'm going to go sell, right? If I can sell, I can offset any losses. So just
Gotcha.
let me go run hard.
Yeah.
Stephanie, my operator, Stephanie is like world-class blue chip manager, operator, and I know nothing about operations. So for her, it was like, she is the blocking and tackling, the X's and O's, the orchestrating of my crazy ideas. And then my CFO is like, I don't even know how to describe her. She's the hardest working person I've ever known. She's the most unemotional, generally speaking, person I've ever known, at least when it comes to business.
Yeah.
And I'd put all my money on her in the World Series of Excel spreadsheets. So, I had a team of people that were everything I wasn't, right? I don't want brokerage. I don't want liability. I can't deal with that shit. It's not, you tell me when there's a problem, I'll go fight the fight.
Yeah.
But like, I can't deal with the minutia. Operator, I love it. I think I can operate, but when I see somebody so much better than me, like, you run your role.
Yeah.
And then spreadsheets are just not my deal. So it's trusting my staff, which allowed me to go and sell, which gave us a safety net in the event that, things got wonky over here. The other thing was I lived so significantly below my means that, like, my sales were stacking chips pretty quickly.
Sure.
So we always knew that was a safety net. So when you have an amazing team of people who can execute, you've got a little bit of a safety net from the sales side. And then I just knew what my best skill set was, which was selling.
Yeah.
It created a dynamic that gave us an opportunity for success.
Yeah. So how did you come across someone like Stephanie and Michelle? I mean, I talk to the business owners pretty much on a daily basis, and I think one of the biggest constraints in their business is people, like talent, lack of talent, right?
Yep.
And they're constantly looking for that individual that can take their business to the next level.
Yep.
How did you come across someone like Stephanie, that integrator, that operator that was tackling and doing all the things on the back end so you can continue to grow on the front end?
3 things. Humility. That's number 1. I'm not good at that. I think most owner-operators, they think they're God. They're the greatest at everything. They want to be in control. So it takes humility. That's number 1.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that, and I need to find somebody good at that, better than that at me, right?
Yeah.
I got us to this point, but that's just because I work hard, not because I'm good at it. So number 1, humility. Number 2, get really, really defined about what that person's going to do. I mean, down to daily tasks, daily operations. If you're up to it, design them what they look like, how they're going to dress, how you're going to communicate with them, like really design the person as an avatar.
How long did it take you to actually like create that, I guess, ideal avatar, right?
I would say probably 3 years, and that started with my
3 years.
3 years. And so what I mean by that, though, it's over time, right? It's my assistant. I'm looking at my assistant, going, what could I, if I took the best traits from my assistant and kept those, that would be part of this operator. But then whatever I could upgrade from my assistant. And the only thing was, that was the only employee I'd had until I owned a brokerage, right? So it was like, what would I need to help on the management side? So there was that. Then it was, as I'm out networking in public, if I'm meeting other agents, if I'm meeting other team leads, if I'm meeting other, you know what I mean? Then I'm going to take bits of like, ooh, man, I can see how she, and it's like really taking what you're learning from the field and in your interactions with people within your respective industry to kind of take clay and kind of mold this person, right? So literally 3 years, but I didn't need the person until it was an acute issue, which was probably a year, right? So it was like those first 2 years, it's like, as I'm going to grow the company, what would I do with my assistant to make them better? And what would I take from these people if I had somebody standing next to me? And then it was like, oh, I have a need, and now I can go get all that information that I was extracting from the field to kind of create this person. Once you really get defined about what that individual is, start telling people, hey, Alan, what's going on, man? Hey, I don't know. Hey, people always ask, right? People always do this. What can I do to add value in your business? Okay, it's like, sometimes I think it's kind of a cliche response. It's something we're supposed to do when we're in meetings. And then there's people that not only really mean it, but there's people who have the ability to do it. And when you know that those people are, you're like, hey, this is really a valuable exchange here. And it's like, hey, I'll let you know, I'm looking for an operator right now. If you know anybody, and by the way, this is what she looks like. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be 10 years in the business. I want her to come from a corporate background. I'm not corporate. I want her to come from like all the things I'm not, right? Because if I just had another mad scientist, we're in a lot of trouble. You know what I mean? So, and Stephanie, if you see, she's sitting right here. She's polished, professional. She's, sitting up straight. She's got great carriage. If I curse, she'll roll her eyes every time I do it. You know what I mean? Like, we're opposites. She too had humility. She's like, I can't do this without Brian. He's Willy Wonka. And I'm like, I can't do this without her. And we're really the perfect kind of yin yang.
And was it perfect from day one, or it just took time for you guys to develop that connection?
Absolutely not. In fact, she was actually hired by the former owner of the brokerage 90 days prior to ownership, but I vetted her with him. Okay. So it was us going out in our respective, peer groups and saying what we needed as that partner. And then he ultimately owned the company. So he was the one that was going to pay her and bring her on. So over a year of courtship and us deciding she's for sure the one, she comes on board with us and he says 90 days later, Brian's the new owner of the company. Okay. So we joked that it was an arranged marriage, right? Stephanie and I. About my memory is like 4 to 6 months in, I'm leading the brokerage meeting and I'm fuck this, shit, fuck that. You guys fucking veins popping out of my neck. Like, let's go. The meeting's over. She goes into her office. I look through her glass door and she goes, come in my office. And I go, okay. She goes, shut the door. Okay. So I sit down and she goes, listen, Brian, like where I come from, she was a Realty Executives corporate and she was there for 8 years. And at that time, that was the heyday Realty Execs. I mean, like, best of breed, right?
Yeah, one of the top.
And she's like, we don't do what you just did in that meeting, right? This is a professional organization. And if I'm going to be your partner, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, Steph, I am who I am. And I'm not willing to sacrifice who I am. And she goes, great. 2 things. We can come to a meeting of the minds. 1, in brokerage meetings, I'm giving you 2 shits and 1 fuck, which by the way became her... It became her nickname. It did. So for the longest time, I called her 2 shits and a fuck, right? This is like the realest story, okay? And so we laugh about it to this day. I tell the story. She'll watch this and she'll roll her eyes and hate me for it, but it's part of it. The second thing is she said, look, I don't know if I can work with you.
That's what she said.
She said to me. And I said, I understand. I go, if you...
And that's after how many months together?
4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months.
You got
and at that time, her role was director.
COO. I mean, she's
chief operating. Okay,
so she was
running. She was running day to day. That's what she was doing.
And she was sold that she was going to be the partner. She was going to be a partner. Right?
Okay, so she was not a partner.
She wasn't a partner yet, but she was told that was the case. So she came in expecting that she was going to be, it was going to be a partnership, right, with the former owner.
Like equity partnership?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, you got it. Yeah. And so I said, hey, look, I can tell right now I can't do it without you. You are the one for sure. Can we schedule a meeting and we'll say 2 or 3 hours, okay? Like this is it. This is the one shot I'm asking you to give me. And we're going to sit in the boardroom and I'm going to keep my mouth shut and you're going to tell me every single thing you think about me, good or bad. Everything. You are just going to empty your tank and you are going to let me have it. And I'm going to take notes and I'm going to look at those notes and I'm going to decide if I can live up to what you expect of me. If I can't, we're out. If I can, I promise you I will change to make it work. And we literally did that meeting. We went in, I sat there dead silent for the whole time, took notes, and we were done. I was like, okay. I can do it. I can do it. I'll prove it. And over the next year, I literally methodically retrained myself to meet at least a version of the standard that she wanted me to meet as her partner.
Do you mind sharing some of those notes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, attire is really important to her. I'm a very casual guy.
Sure, yeah.
It was how we address people and how we communicate with people. It was integrating her as a partner. It was allowing her to do what she does best and not, talking down to her. It was practicing on working with tone and body language. I was a very forceful, young, immature leader at that time.
Yeah.
Things like that were just like, look, we've got to create an environment that she's a cyborg. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to dedicate myself to this company, but I just have an expectation about how we're going to treat each other around here, and it's going to be in a professional way. And I thought I was doing it professionally, if I'm being honest, at that time, but I really needed her to polish me up a little bit.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because, I don't know about you, I spent probably a few years only in a corporate environment, to be honest with you. I don't know how long you spent in a corporate environment. But
0.
Yeah. So for me, in the last 21 years, I own multiple businesses. So you're not going to be polished.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that corporate speak, if you will, be politically correct and all of that stuff. So that's something that you have to develop and learn, like another skill,
you got
right?
it.
So, all right. So Stephanie is the one who's your, operator, integrator, and she's the one who's running the show. Well, you're selling real estate
at that time. Yep.
How long now? I don't know. Are you still in production? You still sell real estate, or
totally?
You are.
All morning I've been on calls.
Really?
Yeah.
So you've been selling real estate for the past 8 years, 9 years.
Never stopped.
Really?
Yeah. Never stopped.
Interesting.
Full production.
Full production.
Yeah. Doing a lot of deals. Yeah.
Is it because you enjoy doing that? Is it because of the money thing? What is the reason?
mostly enjoy it. That ship is sailing-ish right now, right? I mean, I love deal making, right? I mean, I'm good at it. It's muscle memory for me at this point, right? And I really believe that I add unique value in my marketplace, right? I'm an analyst. I'm strategic. I definitely think I have unique people skills, and that's whether it's with cross agent or it's direct to consumer or it's touring and showing properties. The ability to find what people want and need to make a particular situation exciting for them, when in a lot of cases it's not exciting. Like, I really enjoy that space. However, to answer your question directly, the brokerage never paid me. I never, ever took money from the brokerage. Not until 2 years ago when I started taking my alimony check from the brokerage. So this is real talk. It literally would come straight to me.
Dude,
and then go straight to my ex-wife.
Really?
Yeah, I never took a extra dollar. Now, there were times, let me back up to be fair to the brokerage and to my partners. There were times that it would offset some of my tax liabilities, things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like in terms of just
but as far as like
a regular
salary
paycheck,
or like
zero. It was either my alimony or it was tax liability. That's it. Until the final year, this last year was the first year I took distributions, quarterly distributions.
Was it because that you were just like really intentional about like reinvesting all the money back in a brokerage?
100%. Period.
Wow.
Yeah. That is besides the unique creativity and the willingness of our people to trust my creative mind and go execute that being the thing that really kind of set a brand standard for North & Co. The thing that allowed us to accelerate our growth was my commitment to punting every dollar back into the business. It allowed us to hire, Stephanie and Annie and Michelle. I share this, like, I think our payroll was like $2 million a year. You know what I mean? So we had insane talent. Insane talent. And it's because I wasn't taking a check, right? Now, I knew, and I shared this with my partners, my day will come at the end. I'm willing to punt everything now, but I'm going to get the lion's share at the end of the pot. You guys will be taken care of along the way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, straight up the commitment. And so sales was my income.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. Sales was my income. And then investing, I built wealth through investing, but even that came from my sales income. I never took a salary, like a fixed monthly 12 months rolling salary, except for started about 18 months ago was my alimony. Yeah.
So what would you say someone that is growing the brokerage, right? And in the last 2.5 years, 2 years have been rough, right? The transactions are down.
Sure.
Agents are leaving our industry. We're getting constantly bombarded by, regardless, the lawsuits and the agent, DOJ and all of that stuff. There are a lot of brokerage owners that are like, they're not doing well financially.
Yep.
What advice would you give like a broker owner right now, to when it comes to like, I think there's that saying, the number one rule in business is profit, but I think before profit, I think the number one rule is survival.
Sure.
And by adapting.
Yep.
Right. So how would someone right now, especially in this environment right now, adapt, especially with everything that has been going on? And it looks like there's like that race to the bottom in a brokerage world, right? With commissions and fees and all of that.
Yeah. You brought it up. The first thing, unfortunately, for the first time ever in my career, right at when interest rates doubled in 3 or 4 months, was the first time that I ever had to make any layoff at all. And it was only one person, and it was like heartbreaking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The next thing that we did was we trimmed office space. Brick and mortar to me is the death of brokerage.
Really?
And it's really a brutal challenge because most producing agents who run a full-time business don't want to work out of the house, right? It's difficult for them to work out of the house. And there's another part, which is like, if you're going to be a split-based brokerage, which we were, right? Not 100% fee-based shop.
Yeah.
Then for us, we had to provide some unique value. And one of those for top producing agents was
the office space. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but brick and mortar as soon as went to, not survival, but just being mindful business owner, right sizing, your profit margin was to get rid of brick and mortar, right? That was the big one.
So you have your main location on Thomas,
You
right?
got it, yep.
Right, but you also had other offices?
Yeah, and those other three had 3 offices.
Oh, really?
We had one
Okay.
at 16th Street in Northern. We had one in downtown Chandler on Arizona Avenue, like Class A office space in downtown Chandler, and then we had one on Greenway Hayden Loop and Scottsdale Road, right? And all 3 of those were rented. Our Thomas office I own. Right. And it was those lease spaces for us. And, the tough part is like Chandler, for example, we had an anchor agent team there that we were like, we can build around him for sure. The challenge was, even him, like at times wasn't in the office. I mean, we had this space that was the one office that was like, when you say morgue, like it was a morgue, like it was, the lights didn't come on for 3 days or 4 days. And you're burning, I think we were about 10 grand a month there. And like, we're saying 3 days, there's just dust, nobody's there.
Right.
And, but if you say, I'm going to get rid of the office, and this isn't particularly this agent that I mentioned, people go, well, then I'm going to leave. And so now you're letting the tail wag the dog, and you've got to this is the survival part, is hard decisions, right? And going like, okay, well, if I can take back 10 times 3, that's 30 grand a month. What can I do with that 30 grand a month to repurpose that? And right now it might be things like lead gen, right? If transaction count's down and I can take 30 grand and do some really significant lead gen and find 1 to 4 or 5 good agents that are good at, turning those into profits, and we can share on bigger splits. All of a sudden now I've right-sized my profit margin with bigger splits. I've now repurposed those dollars to make more money. And by the way, if I lose 10 agents who are just using the office for a place to hang out anyway, my margins on those deals are really small. So I'm taking the same $30,000 from those office spaces. Yes, I'm losing the agents on their monthlies and whatever splits they might make on their own deals. But now by going into lead gen, I can significantly increase the profit on those same dollars. Things like that. The macro conversation of brokerage right now is, I realized when we officially announced that we sold, right, that we exited North & Co., the talk in the market, the brokerage owners swarmed like, savages to try and take our agents, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. It was like blood in the water. Like, people were saying there were text messages that I have screenshotted that went to our agents that said, Brian sold because he was in financial trouble, right? Like, people were like, really? Like, I had to call these people and be like, if you want to find out how not financial trouble I am, keep sending text messages. Like, I had to do that kind of stuff to just quiet, people.
And these are the broker owners that are reaching out?
These are team leads, broker owners, everyone. There was no immunity. It was literally swarming. What I can tell you that I noticed in that was really interesting from a leadership perspective is none of them, not one, came to an agent and said, here's why we're better. Okay? Every one of them went to them and said, here's why they're bad. Okay? It was, to me, a really obvious sign of leadership in our industry right now that very few truly know their value proposition. Okay? Really, truly, very few really understand that they can deliver a package to somebody and say, you would be stupid not to come here, right? And I think it's a sign of the times. If you're operating in a weak position economically, can you offer better technology? Probably not. Can you offer good leads? Probably not. Do you have the time to
Can you offer better support? Probably
not.
Hire the right people.
Do you have the time if you're in survival to offer great training? Probably not, right? So it was a sign that, like, who out there is really, really right now in the lab working double time to deliver their value proposition? Because here's the thing. We had 270 agents, okay? 221 commits right now we have going to Compass. Okay, 221.
Out of 270, 221. That's huge.
We have 60, a little less than 60, 50, I think, that are unknown, undecided, and 8 that have left.
Whoa.
Okay, 8. Okay, now, when you look at that and you look at the bombardment, we had EXP was probably the hardest push on our agents, right? And not here's why it's good, right? Again, that was the hardest push of why not Brian? Don't go with him. He's not good for you, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I look at it and I go, the reason that we're 260 to 0, right? In effect, is because you weren't delivering your value prop. If you would have come and deliver a value better than me, I think we might have had some attrition.
Yeah.
But I think at large, everybody in our culture realized if your value prop is bad-mouthing Brian, that's why we were here, was for him. So you don't know what you're talking about. Come tell me why you're better and I'll go. So if I'm a brokerage owner right now at any level, it's redefining the value proposition subject to what's happening in the marketplace right now and delivering that in a very direct way that you can perform on. Right? One major thing we know about this industry, especially sitting in a lot of recruiting appointments, is most people came and said, I was sold a bag of goods that I didn't get performed on.
Overpromised, under-delivered. Yep.
One of my best lessons ever was an agent, Solveig. Love her. Hi, Solveig. And she said to me after she onboarded at North & Co., she sent me a text, said, hey, I have a question for you. Can you give me a call? And I didn't call her back in like maybe 15, 20 minutes. And she sent me a text that said, was I the most famous agent at North & Co. for 20 minutes? Question mark.
Oh, shit.
And what it did was, I mean, look, we ended up, she had a great tenure, we had a great relationship, still have a great relationship. But what it was for me was a reminder that that's what's happening in the brokerage industry at scale, is that we do this big song and dance, this big dog and pony show. We win the recruit.
Yeah.
They go through our onboarding process.
Yeah.
And then they're just put out in the pasture to graze, right? That's it. And if brokerage owners listening can hear about that redesign and reevaluation of value prop, one that you can completely deliver on, and that agent feels that they're not just put out to pasture, there's an opportunity to win. And I think more than ever right now, with negotiation of commissions and things like that, I made a soft prediction when we were going through this whole thing that it's going to make brokerages and team leads who can help you negotiate your big your 3% fee, your 3.5% or 4% fee with the seller worth 30-40% splits, right? If you're going to go out and you're going to pay 100% brokerage to be put out to pasture to fight for your own 1% split because you don't have the confidence to obtain it, the net effect of that is you're not going to be in the business long. So
here, real quick, if you're a licensed real estate agent in the state of Arizona, I want to talk to you about my brokerage, Best Homes Real Estate. Best Homes Real Estate is looking to partner with agents that are looking for better support, better tools, better resources in growing their business. If that sounds like you at all, here's what I would like you to do. All right, click on the link below, book a call with me, and I'll share with you exactly what does it look like to work with us and partner with us. Talk to you soon. Now back to the show. So how do you scale that though, right? Mm-hmm. Having that broker owner or team leader, right? And let's say you have 200 plus agents. Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you scale that negotiation piece of it, right? And I get it, training, constant training, development, all of that. But are you kind of saying like get involved in that process, like as a broker owner? I mean, team leader is one thing. Typically, most of the teams have 5 or 6 or 7 agents. And when I used to be a team leader, I would go on most of my agents' listing appointments, at least initially, or I just kind of show them the ropes. But how do you really scale that part?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have, I didn't do it, right? I exited right in the heart of what we're doing here. So we're theorizing here. I just want to be clear. My theory would be that you as the owner, we as the owners would focus almost exclusively on the team leads, right? That's how you, and then you could build, a 1 or 2, how do you duplicate yourself? So if for me, I can say with Stephanie and Annie, for example, Annie would be the financial piece, Stephanie would be the operator manager, business architecture piece, I would be the creative branding, marketing, how to take whatever you wanted to do in your unique business and really be able to execute on that. The 3 of us could probably operate with up to, in my opinion, 15 to 25 team leads. Okay? So that would be 45 team leads.
So how many team leads? Yep. We're talking about team leads. They're not employees of brokerage. No. They are team leads, team owners, team leaders.
That's right.
That are operating their own teams.
You got it. Okay, and you said 5 or so agents per team.
Yeah.
So if I have 45 team leads, which would be 15
so
Stephanie,
over
15
200
Brian.
Agents.
There you go.
Right.
Now, if you can do that well, you should be able to build a duplicatable process. So what would be the duplicatable process? How many out of 45 team leads, how many of those do you think you could train up to be trainers?
That's a hard question.
I mean, you and I have
would
been
say
doing this a
probably
while.
50% probably.
And I think that's aggressive. Okay.
Yeah.
Kudos, right? But I'm with you, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that it's 20%.
Yeah.
Let's say there's 10.
Yeah.
Okay. There's 10. Well, and now can I compensate them through splits, or can I compensate them through office? Can I compensate them through building a JV out for them? Now they get an incentive for being a trainer. And now how many team leads can they train?
Yeah.
Maybe 5. I don't want to burden their business.
Right.
But if it's a duplicatable system now, then I can lean and rely on the people that I've educated up. I'm never responsible for the team members. The team members are a product of the team lead. They're going to go take what Stephanie teaches them in management and execute that. They're going to take what I'm going to do in terms of interpersonal communication or how to motivate someone into sales or sales training and duplicate that. Annie's going to go break apart the financial business for them and help them, and then they should be able to duplicate that. But for me, it's the value of a hands-on, entrepreneurial-minded brokerage or team lead is worth more than it's ever been worth right now.
Then all the gadgets, tools, and all that kind of stuff. Forget about that stuff.
I mean, look, at this point, there's so many gadgets that if I have 15 team leads, I imagine that 15 of them, all 15, would use different widgets.
For sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if this one's a luxury guy, he's going to use different widgets than an investor guy is going to different widgets than, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, the widgets are important. Here's what we do as brokerage owners. Let's go out and build relationships with best of breed widgets so that when we get a team lead who says, hey, I'm pivoting and going to this direction, I need new widgets, we can go out to our resources that we might be able to monetize because there's extra verticals of revenue opportunity in this industry and bring widget monetization into the business for our team leads, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm riffing with you right now. This is theory, but that would be fundamental. That would be
your main value prop right
you
now.
Got it.
If you would think about it.
You got it. Yeah, and because tell me, who do you know who's doing that? Who do you know who's going, hey, I'm going to create a system that if I can get 3 or 5 avatars to buy into this system and the brokerage gets to make 10 to 15% splits off the team lead, but the team lead gets to make 30-40% splits off of their team member based on this duplicatable process. And let's really dig in. Like if we're helping our agents get an average of 2.75 to 3.1%, I'm going to be funny, commissions, while the rest of the world now is below 2%.
Yeah.
Well, now this piece becomes the part we share in to get more. We're going to deliver better service, better, while you said everything's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
So for me, but it's a big risk. We're going to go in Arizona. There's no way you're going to get 30% splits and 15% splits. And I'm going to go, that's why it's the opportunity.
Yeah. But it also, I think, an opportunity for the broker owner to really elevate their skill set
100%.
And develop their ability to set that tone and have that vision and articulate that vision and that value prop to the team leaders out there, right?
Yeah, and the hard part is I had a conversation with one of my buddies at Keller he's with Gary every day, right? And you know that ecosystem, right? And I said to him, when I went and sat with Gary for a day a year and a half ago, and I got full look behind the curtain, right? And for me, I came away from there going, wow, I was mind blown by what's there. And I was like, how do more agents that play in my space not understand that the horsepower of that organization exists in the way that it does, right? And it challenged me to think in a new and different way. And I was like, also, I have my creative mind. How could we marry the two? And what I keep being told is, and this isn't just Keller, but when I get into some of the big box, conversations, is, Brian, that agents don't want what you have. Personal development and, creative ideation of how to find a unique empty parking space in a saturated market. And I asked specifically in this Keller conversation, so what do they want? It was like technology, brick and mortar, training, these kind of things. And I was like, we're still having that conversation? And he looked up at me and he goes, Brian, if they're buying, we're selling.
Wow.
And I remember thinking in my mind, like, there's so much value and truth in that. And who's the renegade, right? I thought I was that guy, right? Who's the renegade that wants to push that thing forward? The thing we just a version of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
There's somebody out there that I hope hears this, that goes, man, there's something in this. But there's this thing I got to tell you. I said to my partners 3 years ago, we're more of a personal development company than we are a real estate brokerage. And I went all in on that. If I could champion people into believing they could do more than they were currently doing in their state, then teaching them how to prospect and build businesses would be the easy part. And I got to tell you, it was a longer slog than I thought it was going to be. And I had a lot of agents who were used to making 500, 600, 700 grand a year that were like, Brian, less personal development, more blocking and tackling. I just want to make more money. And I'm like, you're missing the point.
Starts with personal
That's right. You're missing the point. You need me more than ever. And I have a really distinct choice right now. I'm either going to lose you, so I have to go back to the if you're buying, I'm selling, or I have to stay true to what it is that I want to do and keep pushing forward. But the uphill climb, the risk reward, I got named in the lawsuit, by the way. So the risk reward analysis, for me of being named in the NAR lawsuit versus what my profits were, to abandon what it was that I thought the market needed and go back to the if you're buying, I'm selling, didn't add up. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. Just a lot to unpack. So one of the things that I tell you, like I said, man, I'm a huge fan of yours, but I'm so enamored with your brand, man. Like your brand, North & Co., black and white, gray, it's just different, right? I mean, it just stands out. And you mentioned about 3,000 broker owners out there in this and that, and a lot of them pretty much have the same exact thing, right? But you guys are different. Who came up with the colors? Who came up with the brand? Who came up with the ant symbol and the CEO, right? All of that stuff. Who was that person?
Yeah, technically it was Rethink Advertising. I got to give them credit. It's
like an agency.
Yeah,
okay, got it.
RETHINC.
Yeah,
they're great friends of mine personally, like outside of our relationship. They were a client of mine first. I helped them find a house. They were in the husband and wife team. Stephanie and Ed were in different respective businesses at the time and came together to start an ad agency. And I interviewed them and vetted them just like I interviewed the other ad agencies as I was building North & Co. And they won the job legitimately. It wasn't like I'm going to kick you a favor because I earned a commission.
Yeah.
I knew I was on a trajectory to build a real business, and so they won, and they won big. I'm the one that was the brainchild. I mean, I couldn't draw it on paper, but I sat and articulated with them who I am, what I wanted to build, the brand, etc., and they executed on it. Perfectly. The first ad, I don't know if you ever saw it, was a picture of the back of my head, and it said, "It's about you." And that was the first ad that we launched with North & Co. that I think really kind of shook the marketplace a little bit.
What year was that?
2015. No, 2014. Yeah, because North & Co. was my team before it was the brokerage. Yeah, that was my team.
When did you hire them to create this?
Which, by the way, is broker non-compliant. You can't be a company
North
as
& Co.
a team.
Not anymore.
Yeah, and it was North & Company. So at the time, I didn't know it. I ran for 6 or 8 months, and the Department of Real Estate sent me a letter, and they said, "Hey, we had an anonymous agent say you're in non-compliance," straight up. And as we were transitioning from old co to new co, on that day, it delayed our launch of North & Co. by 1 day because I had to go remove everything North & Co. as an agent, prove to them I was starting a company tomorrow where they okayed me, and then go live again.
Wow.
So North & Co. But Rethink was the one that came up with all of it, and then it just morphed, after that. And we had some core tenets about how we branded, though.
And let's talk about those tenets.
Yeah.
Right. So did you have an internal team, in-house marketing, branding team that was constantly focusing on that, or you were just outsourcing all of that?
Not for outsourcing to Rethink for the first. Yeah, for the first, probably. I'm going to say 4 years.
4 years?
4 years.
So you had them work on your branding for 4 years?
Oh, yeah, any brand campaign. So first thing, core tenets, no face and name, right? Traditional kind of real estate marketing is face and name marketing. My face, my name, I'm number one, right?
Yeah, right.
And we identified this because we sat in a room one day and we took the Arcadia News, which was my target market as a team, and we put every realtor ad up on the wall, and they were all face and name marketing. And they literally said, "I'm number one at something." There were agents that I knew did 1 or 2 deals a quarter,
They're still
and they were number one in their office, or number one on my street, and it was kind of funny. We joked about it, but it was like, we can't do that because we're just going to be in a sea of others. And they literally looked at me and said, "Brian, you keep telling us how punk rock you are and how renegade you are. What if we did an ad where it was the back of your head? And instead of saying, it's about me, I'm number one, I'm this, I'm that, we said, it's about you." And I was like, fucking done. Done. Let's do it. And they were like, seriously. And I'm like, hire a photographer and we will shoot pictures of the back of my head. Like I went to a studio, shot pictures of the back of my head, right? So, and then the next thing that we do is big image, so huge image. If you look at any of our advertising, it's a giant captivating image because we know that when people are scrolling or if you're driving by a billboard or flipping through a newspaper, I might get a couple seconds. So I need some really captivating image. And then 3 words or less. We've only had one ad that was 5 words. It was a real estate experience unlike any other. That was the longest words we've ever had on an ad.
Yeah.
And it was a giant picture of a moon man's shield.
Yeah.
And it had like ampersand on his space suit, and that's all it said. A real estate experience unlike any other.
Yeah.
And other than that, it was 3-4 words or less.
I think your slogans are real estate by trade, right?
Real estate by trade,
Yep,
which we had almost on, that was on very few of our ads. That would be consumer direct ads, like if we were doing direct mail campaigns and things like that. But we kept the real estate by trade component really ambiguous because there was a component of what we were doing that was marketing to agents, right? It's like we wanted our campaigns, we wanted agents to be like, dude, I want to be a part of that. We wanted the consumer to be like, we want to be a part of that. So as soon as we real estate-ified it, people start, it's like if you put a plumbing company, it's like if I could help any company with marketing, be as little of what you are in your name and be as much of what you are in the delivery of your message, right? Mm-hmm. So for us, we had a North & Co logo, no slogan. It was just the logo, very small. If you look at our billboards, like full digital billboard at 44th and Indian School, and I'll bet you that the North & Co logo was 10% or smaller of the billboard. Yeah, because the ads were so captivating that we wanted people to go, what is that? Who is that? And what most people want to do is they want to try and tell the whole story in their ad. But you only have a few seconds to try and get your message across. So it was a real estate. And then so first it was big image, few words, small logo. That's the standard, okay? The next thing that we do is we try and take real-time conversations in the marketplace. An example would be, I'm trying to think, really, really low inventory. Okay, when inventory was like 3,000 homes on the MLS and it was just a dogfight, right? We went through this whole thing of like we went into a brainstorm session, big image, few words or less, and it started with like running a marathon. Like it felt like, hey, it's going to be a long run, but we're going to hang in there with you kind of thing. And our imagery just, if you think about running a marathon, there's nothing fun about that. So you're like, okay, we can't deliver a message that's running a marathon. There's nothing fun about that. Now, one other thing I try and do, and it's if we can get lucky, is we dovetail in some very popular culture, okay? So at the time, we're like kind of riffing. I'm like, what's going on out there? It's like a chess game right now. Like, you really need to be like 5 moves ahead. And everyone in the room kind of stopped. And they were like,
5 moves ahead?
5 moves ahead. Yeah. Okay, there's our words. Yeah. Okay, now what's the image? And I was like, okay, and we went into this thing and we couldn't really figure out what it was. And I go, okay, let's erase our brains for a second. We're too stuck. Let's think about pop culture. And Andrea Larson, our brand director, looked up and she goes, have you ever seen the show Queen's Gambit? And at the time, Queen's Gambit, it was a Netflix show about chess, was probably the most popular Netflix show on TV at the moment. Everyone in the room was like, yeah. And it was like, okay, so like, and we went chess. Then it was like black and white. That's very North & Co, a chessboard. Then it was a chessboard, and I was like, I got it. I want like the king standing there, like laid down like checkmate with a queen like standing over the king. That's all I want on the board. Boom. Next iteration comes for our billboard, chessboard, king's laid down, queen, 5 moves ahead, North & Co. That's it. Right? Now you're driving by and you're looking at the billboard and you're like, it's kind of cool. I have chills as that one, feeling like when that one came together. And now it's a combination of big imagery, few words, tells a whole story in a very, very limited capacity, but like captivating and cool. And then that part of popular culture is hitting a reticular activator for a consumer that makes them say, something about this is familiar, but I don't totally know why. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, and they don't know it's Queen's Gambit. They're not thinking that. They're just at home watching Queen's Gambit every night, binge watching, and then see a chessboard. And for the first time in most people's lives, like there was something about chessboard sales were up like 3,000% during this time that Queen's Gambit was out. So we play on that. Mm-hmm. And throughout the nature of our marketing and ad campaigns, we've done this along the way.
Yeah. So like everybody talks about branding being your number one currency, right? I mean, you guys are a definition of that if you think about it, right? So are you guys have any like KPIs, any tracking mechanisms where you can actually like track and see like, you know, how many people reached out to you, how many agents reached out to you based on that billboard or any other marketing that you guys are doing?
No. Yeah. I mean, I don't care.
You're just creating, the goal is to create omnipresence.
So here's,
right?
if I'll give you a short one here is, for me, when I was first starting to make my run and I was starting to sell real estate, I started getting my first ad calls for billboards and newspapers and Zillow at the time. And it was impression sales. Okay. So then my thing was, I didn't go buy from any of them. What I did do is I went, okay, I learned that impression sales are valuable. Okay. Everyone's selling me impressions. So what I want to do now is negotiate my lowest cost per impression with every marketing medium that I can find. So I put Rethink on CBS Outdoor and said, go tell them we're a buyer, but until we can get to a number that makes sense for my budget, we're not a buyer. So they would call CBS Outdoor and be like, hey, Brian still wants to do this thing.
Well, CBS Outdoor is the billboards.
Billboards. There's multiple out there now, but in this particular case, in this particular location, it was CBS.
Yeah.
So it was like an old listing where you're like, hey, my buyer's still interested. My buyer's still interested until this agent calls you and goes, okay, write your offer. And we did that with the billboard. And we did, open house signs. I had a whole strategy with open house signs to get the most impressions. Newspaper ads. I negotiated long-term contracts for low-cost impressions, right? And
let's go back to the open house strategy. You said you had the whole open strategy when it comes to the open house signs. What were you doing?
Super simple. I got really high-level agents at really small splits on my team. I wasn't making money off of their deals.
Yeah.
But every single thing that they marketed had my name on it, not theirs. Okay, so that was the currency that I traded with them. You guys get thick splits. I'm playing the long game. I'm not going to look. I don't even know if you're going to do deals or not. You're professional. You dress professional. You're going to speak eloquently of the brand. Like, lucky to have you and work with you. Good luck. In the meantime, and we did open houses 2-a-days. So we did 2 open houses Saturday and Sunday. So 4 open houses in Arcadia, 52 weeks a year. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you do between Monday and Friday, but Saturday and Sunday, we all do open houses together. I had a team of 9. Yeah. They each had 12 signs. All 12 of those signs had my name on them. 108, I think, is the number of signs that went out all day long on Saturday and Sunday in a neighborhood of 3,000
And they're seeing your name everywhere.
Period.
That's it.
Gotcha. And it was for 2 years. And then we ended up doing that with the brokerage at the brokerage level. But the reason that I came up with that was not because I was some hardcore marketing guru. It was because I took 10,000 phone calls of people selling me impressions. And I was like, what's the cheapest impression I can create in my micro market? Yeah. Because people driving up and down Indian School was not my market. Some of those people might be West Valley. Some of those people might be East Valley. Some of those people might be North Valley. But I get 90,000 impressions. Great. I'm not trying to sell to all 90,000 people. Yeah. I need these 3,000 people to see my name all the time, day long. Yeah. And so my thing was based off of what I was learning from the pitch and the sales of impression marketing. I then went 108 yard signs, probably cost me $2,000, something like that. So for $2,000, one-time cost, I got 52 weeks of 3,000 impressions all day long. Yeah. So that's how that came.
And plus, on top of that, if they get your stuff in the mail.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So we called it Stain the Brain. Yeah. That was literally what I called the campaign. So I eventually had Rethink negotiate me a great deal on the billboard.
How much were you paying, if you don't mind me asking?
$1,500.
That's it?
$1,500 a month.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's digital billboard.
In my heart of my target market, I've had it for 10 years. Yeah. Yeah. Never not been on the billboard. Arcadia News, they negotiated me a great long-term relationship with Arcadia News. Then I was doing direct mail, got the shopping carts at 48th Street and Indian School at the Safeway. And then I had my 108 signs. And then I even went so deep, at my open houses, my direct mail was inviting the neighbors to open houses. Why did I do that? Why did I invite the neighbors?
Oh, because they're eventually, can be sellers.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
good.
But also, I mean, from the branding perspective, like you're making connection and we're building a rapport with them, right? And you're planting the seeds for the future transactions.
Yep. Yes. One step before that, true to impression marketing. So I learned impression marketing from people selling me impression marketing.
Interesting.
I learned inviting neighbors because all of my counterparts, every time I said, "How was your open house?" said what?
Nobody showed up.
Just a bunch of nosy neighbors.
Yeah.
And I went, "You're complaining? Like, I door knocked to build my business, and you're telling me you're in your target market, you put signs out, and all the neighbors come to visit you?
Yeah.
This is genius. So I started doing direct mail to invite the neighbors. I was doing 3 things. One, I was auditioning. That's what I called it. They didn't know it, but I was going to wow them with knowledge, professionalism. Hey, we just moved in 3 weeks ago. That's a terrible lead, right? They just bought a house 3 weeks ago, but they go, my agent, I need a painter, and I can't get a hold of my agent. Right? Agents love to forget about their clients. No problem. I'll shoot you a painter. Brian, you're not my agent. I know. That's okay. I got a great painter, local guy, Arcadia guy, going to get him to you. So I was auditioning. I was providing value, collecting information. That was my long tail information. So for me, it was inviting neighbors. But then I got a local coffee roaster to make half-pound bags of coffee. And I had a branded the coffee stomping grounds. Okay, so it was like Arcadia was my stomping grounds, and I had this cool little like logo on the back of it. But the sticker on the front that said stomping grounds was my yard sign. That's what it looked like, except for it said stomping grounds. And I literally went to this level where I was like, I want for them to see my yard sign the first thing when they wake up in the morning. How can I infiltrate their mind first thing in the morning? So now it's like I go get my coffee because I invited. I grind my coffee, this beautiful local roasted coffee, and I see Brian's yard sign. And then I drive down the street and I see Brian's yard sign. And then the Arcadia News comes and I see Brian's yard sign. And then I go to Chick-fil-A and there's the billboard and I see Brian's yard sign. And staying the brain impression marketing is really what put us on the map.
So if let's say you're an agent right now, brand new agent, no sphere, no past client, really kind of new to the business and to the area, what would you do?
Open houses. More than exact way. And here's more than ever. I mean, like you and I should be doing open houses right now. I mean that, and here's why. Because buyers don't. The news for the last 8 months told buyers they don't need an agent. Okay. Right now, I'm getting very, very few scheduled tours on properties. Very few showings. Open houses. 22 people through.
Wow.
Guess how many are represented? None. 0. Buyers are not, they more than ever don't think they need an agent. Now, what do we know is going to happen? They're going to shop the market, find a home they want, and they're going to go, I need an agent.
I need help.
Well, who's the easiest agent for them to find?
The one
standing in the open house. So now, if I'm a team member, I can curate buyer leads like I always did. But if I'm the listing agent, double-end deals right now we should be seeing 10, 20, 30% increases on double-ended deals right now because most of the people coming into the home are not represented, right? So for me, now more than ever, and this is a 60-day revelation for me where I'm talking to my team members going, hey, because I still have a team, right? Talking to my team, how are open houses? We had 22 people through. You guys were only there for 2 hours. This is a $3.2 million house in Arcadia. Yeah, I know. And they're looking at me like, what? Like, that's how every open house is. And I'm looking at Adam, my partner, and I'm like, how many showings have we had on that property in the last 6 days? Brian, 0. I'm like, so we had 0 tours and 22 people through. How many of them are represented? None. Like, they don't even know what they're saying to me, my team members. You know what I mean? They're like, holy cow. So for me now, and then what? I mean, you want to scale that, it's like door knock the surrounding 20, 30 houses, like circle prospecting that we all know about, but like really building a machine of a business that way right now more than ever. And while everybody else is on social media waiting for DMs, go out there and beat the street. I mean, more than ever right now.
So you're still a huge proponent of open houses.
Oh my gosh. More than ever.
Wow.
Right now. Yeah.
So how do you get your business right now? Is it primarily word of mouth, referrals, past clients?
100%
That's
referral.
it, right?
It's 100% referral at this point. And I'm selective.
You're selective as well.
I just say,
Are you still showing homes or you're just
No, I have a showing agent.
You have a showing agent.
I go team. Yeah, I go tour the home once they pick it. So my showing agent, this is literally how I set up my show. People are always like, I could never in the luxury space. I know people I compete with are like, Brian doesn't even show you homes. Like, why would you work with him? No, it's not how it works. What it is I just, in the listing presentation, there's one very important question. What do you need me to do that's the best value? And they say the same thing every time. Negotiate me a great deal, troubleshoot challenges and help me through the deal process. That's literally, they get stuck after those 2 or 3 things.
When they want to buy a house or sell a house?
Buyer. Because that's showings, right? For the most part. Okay. And then my question is, I ask it just like this. So it's not opening the doors for you on houses you don't want. And they go, no, Brian, you're busy. Just that question that way. Okay. And then they look at me and they go, I go, great, you're right, I am. So I'm going to have Caitlin, She's going to show you all the properties until you pick the one you want.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to go out and visit the one you want.
For validation.
For validate. Well, not only that, here's the thing. Really, from a service perspective, if I'm going to negotiate their deal, I should know the ages of AC units and hot water heater and the roof and the floor plan and where it's situated in the subdivision relative to the other comps. I should know what value this property has versus what it doesn't have. Because when I go negotiate, I need to know where the soft spots in the deal are so that I can highlight everything the seller already knows is bad about their house so I can get the best deal. I need to walk that property, right? But if I have a client who looks at 20 to 40 properties over a 4-month period of time, buyers are discerning right now, and they should be because stuff's expensive, right? Yeah. So if it's a 3 to 4 month or 5 month, showing process, and then we get to the one, look how much time I saved myself as the team lead, but I'm still doing what's necessary in the deal to be able to serve the client at the highest level.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome, dude. Yeah. That's great. Okay, let's shift to attracting talent.
Cool.
Right. So we briefly talked about, getting the right employees, how important it is. Yeah. What about agents? Like, you said you got 270 agents. Yep. I mean, that's a lot of agents. Yep. Yep. How are you guys bringing in? I mean, what are you guys doing? What's working for you in terms of attracting and recruiting agents right now in this market?
Yeah, really 3 things that we've always landed on. Number 1 is open source. That is like our core.
What's an open source?
Open source. The first time I ever heard open source was I watched a YouTube video about a 14-year-old kid in Cortez, Colorado, who needed a prosthetic arm and he couldn't afford it. So he invented it for himself. Wow. 14 years old. But not only did he invent it, he was like, the prosthetic arm I could get would be the one that people would refer to as a hook, right? I'm a 14-year-old kid. Like, I don't want to go to school with a hook. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So at 14, he technologically engineered an arm that had fingers that he could control with his brainwaves. Like he could think, close your hand, and it would close its hand. And then what he said was, I've patented the technology, and the only way that I'm going to bring it to market is if it's open source to the corporations who can do it, but that will serve it back to the kids like me who can't afford it. And it just touched my heart. I was like, that. And the term open source is that his patented information subject to contract would be free to you as long as you would be able to pass along the value to the consumer, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was this thing of how can I duplicate that in the real estate industry? Mm-hmm. I want to get the highest level talent, which is no brand new agents. So we don't take brand new agents.
You don't take brand new agents.
0 brand new agents.
Even like the teams.
A team member, a team lead can take brand new agents, but we'll vet that agent and go, here's why we think you should. Here's why we think you shouldn't. Now you can, and we tell the agent, you are on their watch. We are not responsible for
Brian,
you.
I mean, at one point we were all brand new agents.
Yeah, you're right. 100%.
Why would you not take a brand new agent? Especially the one that is like all in, full-time, super committed, coachable. Why not take a brand new agent?
How many people of those have you had that didn't succeed? Super in, all in, coachable that didn't succeed?
I mean, quite a
95%.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are not fully committed. They're not really coachable. Yeah. They're doing this on the side here and there. I mean, those are the ones that don't succeed.
Here's my other thing. If you go and interview at 3 or 4 brokerages, good top-level brokerages, you learn what to say, right? And so there's a lot of people that come in and they know what to say in the interview. I'm fully committed. I'm all in. I'm a hustler. Here's my background. I was in car sales. I don't care. This business is a different beast, right? I worked at Mercedes-Benz in the car business, okay? I had 15 people I competed with every day. 15. How many agents are there in the state of Arizona?
50,000.
50,000 that you have to compete with. I don't care where you come from. Look at what we've been talking about. How many people are capable of doing what you and I have thought through over a 20-year period of time to accelerate their business, right? Like it's warfare, right? So there's this thing for me. Guess what my barrier to entry is as a new agent? 1 deal. Okay, if you've never done a deal, I'm sorry, there's no place for you here. You can go over there and close a deal. And once you've been born into this industry, once you've had your teeth kicked in, you've fallen out of escrow, you've made a check, you realize that you made less than minimum wage for the first 6 months, now we can have a conversation because now you're teachable, right? So no new agents.
No new agents. So what is your criteria? Is it a certain number of deals?
Both. It's either 4 million in gross sales or 12 units.
Wow.
Either or.
Interesting.
Okay. Now, the other thing is, if you haven't done that yet, but in the last 12-month cycle you're tracking
you're
for that,
sending,
then we would be open to a conversation. And even still, we might go, you know what, you're not quite there yet. We're open to you because you're a hustler, you're up to it, you're smart, you're professional, you're all these things. We would suggest you would be on one of our team leads, or would you be open to interviewing with one of our teams? Yep. So
were you guys like this from the get-go?
From the jump. That's how we got. Yeah, I mean, that's how it. And that story, that was the hardest thing for us to do. Oh yeah, this was brutal for us because to stay true to that and no special deals. That's the other thing. I don't care who you are, no deals.
Like no different commission splits, no signing bonuses.
And we ended up doing this. So the first signing bonus we ever did was for Robin Orscheln, and Robin Orscheln was bringing $55 million in active luxury listings from Sotheby's. Hell, yeah, she got equity in the company. Real talk. So yeah, she got it. But her commission splits were the same as everybody else's splits. She paid the monthly fee.
You guys were at 90-10 or 90-10?
If you took, we had 3 different models. We had a cap model, we had a static model. If you blended them all together, we were just like our average take per commission gross was like 9.5%. If you blend all of the different ones.
So 10% margin.
You got it, 10% margin.
Right. Yep. And with Compass, same split?
Same. Yep. So Compass even has for top production, if you really fit a micro mold, they've got a 95.5 with
so they're paying out a little more.
You got it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that model was from the jump. No special deals, no new agents, minimum production standard. And what happens is when you get to about 75 agents who are willing to play in that space, you have proof of concept, right? So now if I go out and I make a call to Alan, and I go, hey Alan, you want to take a look at what we got cooking over here? He's like, you guys are 75 agents. And you know who I am? And I'm like, why don't you come meet these 75? These 75 are not your average 75. This is a pack of killer whales, right? And so it was that thing where we started getting conversations with talent, and most of it was from big box brokerages that felt like things were really tired, the technology was kind of antiquated, the leadership was aging out, that sort of thing, and they wanted something exciting and refreshing, and we had that. So open source, you get to work in an open source environment with producers. That was the other thing. It's
collaborate.
Like these people share everything. And we used to say in interviews, anyone that's ever been through a North & Co interview would know, I've said this, or Stephanie or Christina said it, said if you ask anyone, including a Robin Orscheln who's doing $200 million in sales, to go to coffee, and she doesn't go with you, it would be grounds for severance. Okay? Everybody must share. You come back and tell us Robin didn't go to coffee with you, we'll have a conversation with her. Grounds for severance, right? So we created that open source culture where everyone's pouring in. So if you're a $10 million producer and you want to go to $30 million, and you know you can call Molly and Jared Rodham and they'll go to coffee with you like in the week, you're like, that's a value to me, right? Yeah. They'll help me grow my business. That was really the key cornerstone or core tenets of what we built. Yeah.
Interesting. So as far as like tactics, right? Yep. Like, is it cold outreach? Is it social media? I mean, how are you guys, and how many agents are you like on average per month bringing in right now, or
go. So we're about the 8-9 year mark. You know, at the end of North & Co. Go back to the 6 year mark. So from 0 to 6 years, it was all word of mouth, and it was a lot of me taking advantage of things like this: podcasts, panels, keynote speaking engagements, things like that. Really pouring back into the community,
just attracting agents. They're raising their hand. Hey, I would like to learn more about your company and all of that.
That would be. I was heavily.
And how many agents did you have at that time? By about year number 6,
150.
150. Got it.
And that was all like word of mouth referral. You know,
so you didn't have like a corporate recruiter or anyone that was just reaching out today.
Starting 3 years ago.
Only 3 years ago.
Only 3 years ago. Yeah. Starting 3 years ago. Yeah. And I mean, I'll say 3 years ago. For about right at COVID was where we knew. I mean, we had to change something. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. It was the time where I was like, I'm either gonna make a move during COVID out, or I'm gonna make a move to go for it. And we set a huge goal to go to 500 agents doing $5 billion in sales by the end of 2025. So by the end of next year. And so with that push, we brought on somebody to do outreach. But that was, at first, it was kind of a subcontractor. It was kind of a part-time thing. It was one of our agents who, needed some fixed income, was a very vibrant part of our culture.
Sure.
And so that was about a 6-month relationship. We learned a lot for each other. She stayed at the brokerage as a full-time agent, stepped out of that position, and then we hired a full-time professional.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Hey, real quick, if you're a broker owner or a team owner and looking to grow and scale your business by bringing in more agents, i.e., recruiting more agents to your organization, I got to tell you about Modern Day Brokerage. Modern Day Brokerage is something that I started about 2 years ago with my partner Tristan Horn, and we're currently working with 120 clients. These are broker owners, some of them are team owners as well, where on average with our services, they hire 4 to 5 agents every single month. So if you, again, a business owner, a broker owner, or a team owner that is serious about growing your business by predictable agent attraction and recruiting methods, you can book a call with us by clicking on the link below for a free private business consultation meeting with me or one of my team members. Talk to you then. Back to the show. If let's say you were to do it again, would you bring somebody like a full-time recruiter earlier on, or no? Like your
So
goal
here's what
was
I'm
up
going to
to
say.
500
Here's what I'm going to say.
agents,
I'm going to give her a plug. Christina, I love you. This one's for you. So this is what I would do. I would hire Christina Atkinson. That's what I would do. So Christina she's got a company called Out of Office. Okay, that's the name of her company. She was our recruiter for the last 2 years. And she decided to build a company that was a brand agnostic recruiter, and it's genius. So her model is free to agents. Okay, so any agent that goes to Christina and says, I'm looking for a new brokerage, she's a safe zone because she doesn't have any, she's not paid salaried to any brokerage in town. So she goes, tell me what you want. Now, most agents come to you and they tell you what you're looking for. You can tailor your message to what they want so you can recruit.
Needs, right, yeah.
Me too. So does every other brokerage owner.
Yeah.
And this is where we're doing the overpromise, underdeliver.
Sure, yeah.
They go to Christina and they're like, hey, I'm kind of part-time right now, but I might want to do 3 or 4 more deals this year. I'm looking for a coach that's not like a hardcore this, maybe a little softer, that'll kind of guide me into my spirituality. Christina's like, I know the leader for you. I'm going to introduce you to this person that I think is a perfect match. It's like a dating, like a dating service, matchmaking, right?
Yeah.
Then for the brokerage owner, Christina has a flat fee based on the agent's production. So I'm going to misspeak her fees, but I'm going to tell you for the first up to 10 million, it's hundreds of dollars for the agent, not thousands of dollars. And then over 10 million or 20 million, it's under $1,500 an agent. Right, and it's
a steal.
So for the brokerage owner, what she's done that was a problem for our relationship was I had a big fixed expense for her, and if she didn't recruit anyone that month, she got a salary. This was my full-time executive. I trained her in recruiting, right? So if I paid her salary every month, whether she recruited anyone or not, that became a tough part of our line item when we're in survival mode. Go back to where we talked about in this session. So. It was if I could get a variable cost. Look, if you can recruit me 20 killers, I'll pay you 2 times your salary. But if you get 0, I want to pay you 0. That's the world we live in, right?
Pay per performance.
So from an agent perspective, it's free, and they get a brand agnostic matchmaker that says, I'm only going to listen to where you're at, and then she shepherds them through the onboarding process. You build a relationship with her and you tell her very specifically, I'm only looking for agents like this for a brand like this. And if you deliver those people, I will perform 100% of the time. She's like, I've got a perfect one for you, and brings them. She shepherds the relationship and you pay her a flat fee. That's what I would do as a recruiter. That to me, and I obviously helped build that. I mean, I helped coach her in the architecture of it.
Yeah.
And I helped her architect it as a value advantage for her because she's one of a kind.
Yeah.
And a value advantage for the agent and for the brokerage because it doesn't exist in our marketplace. It's a variable expense for recruiting, and to me, that's what we need as recruiters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'll give you her number when we're done and give her a call. Yeah.
So pay per performance, essentially.
Pay per performance. You got it.
Okay,
Yep.
not somebody who's on your staff,
but
paying salary
also
or anything like that.
specific to your need, right? Look, Christina recruited people that I know she thought were I think they'll be a good fit. She's believing in them. This environment might chew this guy up and spit him out, but I need to recruit some people because Brian's paying me, and that whole thing's kind of in her back of her head. I'm not sure that's fair to the agent or the brokerage owner.
Yeah.
But if she's getting paid a salary, she has to perform. So this model, if you can find one out there, go find that model. I think it can be good for you.
I love it. I love it. What would you say would be like the top three most important things for the broker owner to focus on to grow their business? The top three things.
Gosh, the reason I'm stuck in my head answering it is because when you have 3,000 brokerages, you have 3,000 models, right? And so if it's like, if you have like, what is the three things, I've got to answer I got to give you a general answer that fits 3,000 brokerages, right? Which is unique. I don't think that way really. But if I were to go right at it, no matter what your model is, number one, it would be that humility, relinquishing of control to people better than you in the industry so you can do what you're best at for the business. That would be number one. I was so intentional about taking my time and hiring exquisite talent. Yeah. And what that did for me, it allowed us to do something exquisite. It allowed us to do something magical. The second thing is, let's say whether you're like a boiler room or you're a yoga, model. Your deal is we do yoga on, every weekday before we prospect. That's why I say models are so tough. It's so tough to give a generalized answer. Is get really, really intentional about understanding the personality profiles of people. Now, here's the layers that go into that and the things that I like to study. If you're a yoga practitioner, it might be things like astrology and Enneagram. Okay, these are things that I study so I can speak the language of the person who I want to move through the world. If they trust me as a leader, I need to be able to speak their language. If you're a boiler room, then you need to understand disc profile, most likely, right? And you're going to speak in terms of disc profile. So for me, really understanding like the character makeup and humanness and how to articulate and communicate to each individual person to help get the best out of them, the reason I think this is so important is because with the advent of AI, right, being hyper-focused on human emotion and human communication and how to bring people closer so you can get them where they want to go is going to be a superpower, because we're going to start lazily relying on this thing to spit out my answer, and we're still human. Yeah. Right. So for the midterm, which is like until AI takes us over and we have to go to Mars, on Elon's rocket ships, right now it's really about how insanely good can we get at being intentional about the human. The third one would really be really get in the lab and work to re-identify the value proposition. And the way to do that is just go take your top 10 competitors and do an analysis of what are they all saying is their value add. And if it's technology, brick and mortar, best broker, best training, best leads, which is what everybody says, like that's dead. It's dead.
Even the leads.
The conversation's dead. So here's what I would say to do. Here's what I do, okay? What I like to do. Just change the vocabulary, okay? So I'll give you an example in personal development. If I tell people that I'm going to meditate, people are like, I don't know, meditation. That sounds very religious, okay? I'm like, no problem. Let's call it breath work, okay? Same thing. Now, I took something that shrunk my attention pool, and I just changed the word, and it expanded my attention pool. People say yoga. Hey, you want to come to yoga with me? That sounds very Buddhist or Hindu. Like, no problem. Let's call it stretching, right? People are like, I'll go stretch with you, right? So same thing in the brick and mortar, best office space. Let's say an elite performance environment, okay? I'm making that up. That would be office space, okay? If it's leads, you're like, even leads, I'm like, hey, we have, speed to customer, right? What do you mean by speed to customer? Well, everyone calls it leads. Let me help you understand how we get you speed to customer. I'm making this up. Sure. But it's like redefining the value proposition can be as simple as just providing a different language that everybody's saying in their respective market.
Interesting. Okay, got it. Yeah. So buyer opportunities or seller opportunities versus leads.
Yeah, you got it.
Something along those lines.
And the way that you would phrase those words would be subject to your model. Yeah. Right? Seller and buyer opportunities might be a boiler room type model, right? Helping you curate long-lasting relationships might be the yoga model, So it really is, that's why I say offering a generalized answer for me, it's like let's you and I do one of these where we bring in 3 different brokerage owners for 30-minute power sessions and go have them ask the questions. My answers might sound different. I get accused often of being like flip-floppy. You know what I mean? Like, wait, dude, yesterday you said this and today you said this. And I'm like, it's because you either asked the question differently, something happened last night, like in the industry, like it's all subject to what is real time. No one thing works linearly forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting. What would you say would be the going from 50 agents to 100 agents, from 100 to 150 and over 200, the biggest constraint on each of those stages?
By the way, let me just say, 150 agents is where every independent should stay, in my opinion.
No shit.
No shit.
Why is that?
Either like 150 or 500. It's just the climb to 500 is, I mean, you're hearing all the things about the way my brain thinks, and there's a point I arrived where I was like, I'm not sure I can do it.
Was it just because the fact that the layers of additional expenses, the staff that goes from 150 to 250?
I can tell you what I did wrong. I'll tell you what I did wrong. What I did wrong is I made our culture made the value was reliant on Brian, Stephanie, Annie, and Michelle being available as humans, not as leaders in a company, right? Like I made myself available for Sunday morning calls if someone was going through a hard time with their spouse, okay? Like I took those calls a month ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago from right now. Like I was that available, right? That isn't scalable. I always said that if I could figure out how to scale emotion, I would dominate this industry, okay? Because it's an emotional business. Wow. But I made myself that available. That's an Achilles heel. I can't take 500 people's personal phone calls on the weekend, right? Like it's impossible. So that was my problem, right? In my model. After that, yes, I remember sitting across from our CPA Cooper, and at one point when we said we want to go from here to here, and then I looked at his wife Annie, who's our CFO, and I said, Annie, run out our profit model based on 500 agents, and she ran it out, and it was like $2 million net. Right? And I was like, yeah, we're going to get rich. And Cooper looked over and he was like, that's so cute. He's like, but you didn't change your expense structure. And I was like,
I mean, we're assuming we're going to be able to handle 500 agents like we're doing with 250, right?
That's and when we modeled out the expense structure relative to what it was going to take to run 500 agents, our net profit went down net from what, not at 500, at 250 from what it was at 150. I'll just tell you right now, like I'm an open book. I'll tell you, and this is because I was people heavy. I was company heavy. You know, we were at 150 agents. We were net 750 grand. I mean, net. That was like net after all expenses pre-tax. We were 750 grand. Now, keep in mind, you know, transaction volume down, interest rates going up, post-COVID, all those things. With 250 agents, we had 1 year where we were barely profitable.
Wow.
Barely profitable. Yeah. I mean, like squeaked it out. Oh, and by the way, that year in September, talk about exquisite people. And I won't get emotional. I've gotten emotional every time I say this. We were in October of 22, I think. And I noticed that we were in our financial meeting and I noticed that our wage line item changed because it's the same wage line item every single month. It had been that way we had no attrition. Our employees stayed, our employees were with the company forever. And our wage line item changed. And I looked at Annie and I said, why is our wage line item different? And the room got still quiet. And I was like, I know they didn't let anybody go. We would never let an employee go without me knowing. And Annie looked up and she goes, I gave myself a pay cut. And I was like, you did what? This is my CFO. She goes, I knew we were going to lose money this month. It was going to require a capital call from our partners. I know that, and they were very minority owners, but still, not everyone was in a position to even make a $5,000 capital call as one of our partners, right? So she, on her own accord, without asking any of us, took a pay cut to right-size that month's payroll, right? And so, you know, for me, that was certainly a unique and weird time. But what I can tell you in that year of 22 was year 2, post-COVID, of me telling you that we were building into a big future. So we had over brick and mortared on purpose. We knew we had acquired more office space to build into. I made the comment that it was the first time in the history of the company that I was growing into our shoes versus blasting our toes out the side of our shoes and then getting bigger shoes.
Yeah.
So I rolled the dice. We had some working capital. We had the right people. We had really good agents. We had a good batch of, we had good lead flow, good market share, good branding, good reputation. This is a time, let's roll the dice.
Yeah. Hence 3 offices.
You got
3
it.
additional.
4 months later, interest rates doubled. And I'm over-officed, overstaffed, over everything. We're now losing in the month of August or September. Annie's taking a pay cut at 250 agents. That year, 22, we were net a nickel.
Wow. Yeah. And I appreciate the transparency.
Of course. Yeah.
But like at that time, you were almost like 7 or 8 years in business.
Yep.
How did it feel? Like, wait a minute, like what's going on? Like 8 years in business, we got over 150, 200 agents at that time. Like, and we're like losing money. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, I mean,
like, why am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Like I'm sure every entrepreneur, and I've been in those situations many times before, dude. Like you put in so much time and energy, everything, and then resources on top of that.
Yep.
And you're feeling like you're finally getting over the hump, and then something happens, and you're like back at it again. It's like, fuck, what am I doing wrong?
Oh, I mean, by that time, here's the good part about 7, 8 years in the business is I'm battle tested at that point. I mean, I've literally been at war for 8 years, right? I mean, look, I explained to people when the NAR lawsuit happened, the NAR lawsuit happened. I was like, I was in front of a room of 150 people, and I was like, stop.
These are your agents.
Yeah. I get everyone quiet. Everyone's quiet in the room. I go, let me help you guys understand the last 8 years. I go, if we go back 8 years ago and start, we had no inventory, okay? Because sales were so good. Then we had iBuyers, right? iBuyers came into the marketplace, and that was going to be the death of us. Open Door and OfferPad were going to sack us, and all of our clients were now paying no commissions. Zillow. The whole deal, right? Yeah. Then Zillow. Yeah. Zillow was next, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, now Zillow's a brokerage. We're going to get smoked. Then it was 72 sold. And we're like, oh gosh, here comes 72 sold. We're going to get smoked. Then it was 3,000 homes on the market. We're going to get smoked. Then it was 7.5% interest rates. Then we're going to get smoked. And now we have a lawsuit that, by the way, let's just stop and look through this. Consumers have been operating one way for 50 years. You think they're going to reorganize our paperwork and that's going to change the consumer behavior? No chance. And even if it is, we've navigated every single one of these other storms. And at North & Co., we are a production-based brokerage, right? I mean, this is going to sound very realtor, but I think in our 4th year, we went from 99 million in sales to over $1 billion in sales in 4 years. You think reshuffling paperwork is going to change the way that we earn commissions? What are you guys doing, right? So when you're like, hey, you're losing money now, I'm like, welcome to the fucking party. You know what I mean? Like, rally the troops, make hard decisions. I mean, the nice part about having really, really tight books is you can identify the areas that you can make money again. Yeah. There's an expensive line item. How much of that can we get rid of? There's a place we can make more money. I mean, we broke down all of our transactions. We're doing on average, about 150 transactions a month. So we can look at those transactions and we break them into $100,000 price point increments. Well, if you're doing 60% of your deals between $699 and $799, well, let's go do whatever we can to help our agents market to that target market to increase more sales in that place where our consumers responding. So it's just, that's the game of war. I mean, it was pretty interesting, actually, now that I say it. It was probably a year before that I read The Art of War for the first time. And it really helped me understand. It's like, all you got to do is understand the landscape of the field of play. Right? There's weather, there's terrain, there's, who you're at war with, and everybody feels like they want to go on offense. Sometimes it's really important to retreat and go on defense. Regroup, get yourself healthy again, get some rest, build a new plan and drive forward. That's what happened. I mean, at that point, it was just normal. It was just bad. It was nothing. There was nothing weird for me at that time.
So a lot of people start brokerages because they want to have that sellable asset, that exit strategy eventually, right? In your situation, you were able to do that a couple of weeks ago. Right. If you don't mind sharing, like, how did you come across the opportunity? How long did it take? And what made you to do this transaction in the first place? Because again, you have a successful brokerage, a well-known brand, over 270 agents. So if you can just kind of like unpack that for us.
Yeah, the first most honest answer is me coming to a very honest realization with myself. And I'm talking about, for anybody listening, when you pull the covers over your head at night and the lights are off, and your partner you care deeply about, who you get vulnerable with, has rolled over and gone to sleep, and there's no lights on, and you're wide awake and you can't go to sleep, and your mind's chewing you up about what I should be doing in the world. Am I on the right seat on the bus? Am I my highest and best value to the world? And the conversation predominantly that started with a feeling was, no, I'm not. I'm not on the right seat on the bus. Now, well, what are you supposed to be doing? I don't know. I don't know. But this is not it.
And how long did you have that feeling?
The first chink in the armor was during the pandemic, and it was only because it forced me to pause. We were one of those weird companies that, because we didn't know what to do, we closed our office for a few months, so I wasn't going into the office every day. Anytime that I'm challenged with a macro problem, a real macro problem, I get really clean. Like, I wasn't going out to happy hours, I wasn't drinking, I was eating clean, I was working out every day, like really needed to be hyper-focused. I knew I was up to a tough game, right? And in that time, I had my first indication of fear that like I might lose this thing. And it wasn't like, I wasn't afraid of losing a business. I was just afraid that it forced me to ask myself the question of, if something external got to choose that I lost this, how would I feel? Okay, that was what started. It was like, there was a little part of me that was like, I'd be okay with it, right? And that was a scary response. Okay, it was a scary
like
response.
Losing the brokerage.
Yes, like if the pandemic wiped me out.
Yeah, I mean, you're still selling real estate.
Yeah. But it was like, and then it was, what about it? And look, man, as many agents that have come under my leadership or not, every time one leaves, I take it personal. I do.
You still?
For sure.
Really?
Yeah, because look, man, these people are calling. I personalized the brand. I personalized the brokerage. Right? They're wearing my name on their T-shirt. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like. So yeah, it was difficult. Now I would deal with it faster. I would emote through it faster. There were days, 5 years ago where it would wear on me for 6 months, that a person left. Like, man, I mean, I went to this. I mean, I've been to people's family funerals and been to, what I mean, like, and then they left because they were given leads or something, you know what I mean, or they got a better split. Like, what happened? How did they forget what I will never forget? I learned how to process that much faster, but. Then I just started looking at, agents don't leave against me. They leave to better themselves. And it was like, and that thing's never going to change. That's part of the ecosystem,
just part of the game. Yep.
So then I got to really start to walk into the business and go like, if I did this thing perfectly, what is it worth at the end, or what is it worth to me annually? And what do I have to put out in order to make it worth that, right? And then I dug back in. I'm going for it. Okay. So, that was the first chink in the armor, I called it, because it was the first time that I questioned it all, if that makes sense. But then I quadrupled down, rallied the team, market conditions went on fire, and we went on a tear.
Right.
And then it was probably about 2 years ago, it was when I actually got an opportunity to meet Gary Keller. And I went down and I met with Gary, and it opened my mind. It really, here's what it did. When I got a look behind the curtain on what they were building technologically, I was one of his front row guests at family reunion. I spent 3 or 4 hours with him just one-on-one in his office. Like, when I got that kind of red carpet treatment there, I got to sit with the CTO for 2 hours and like him walk me through the next 3 years of the technological plan. Got to hear them talk about at scale that they're gaining 6,000 agents and losing 5,000 agents a month at the time, and being like, I'm pissed off I'm losing one, and they're losing 5,000 agents a month, recruiting 6,000, and I went through that whole thing. I was like, the first feeling I had was I'm underserving my agents. Because if I now know as a leader that this exists, whether it's packaged properly or not, but that my agents have this opportunity to opt into this level of horsepower, if they would buy into open source the way I have open source, if they would deliver their technology in a way that the agents would want to adopt it, if they would consider a light rebrand in my opinion, right? Like, these were things that we would all be dead. That was literally like how I thought. And it wasn't because
that was 2 years ago.
it was 2.5 years ago.
Have they rolled out any of that stuff?
Well, I didn't really share a ton of that.
Yeah,
the stuff they showed me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they did?
Of course, yeah.
I don't know. It's like, I hear these mixed messages about
Of course,
stuff that
it's
they
because
got, like,
agents,
in, man.
look, and this is my buying, selling. You know what I mean? Like, agents get to choose whether they want to buy what they're selling or not.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
sure, mixed messages. I mean, look, I'll just give you a basic example. They can put in a brokerage ID number for MLS and push a button, and it will spit out the top 25% likely to be recruited. Okay? Now, from a brokerage, like, you know what I was doing?
So,
I was
like,
working
predictive analytics.
Yeah, so I'm working through broker metrics,
Yeah.
building a list through title, and then sending it out to get skip traced,
Yeah.
and then getting the phone numbers back and
Yeah.
sorting who my friends are because I don't want Christina calling them,
Yeah.
and then cold recruiting them. Like,
Yeah.
they're just that kind. There's simple things, right? Like that, which So, long story short, that had me come back and go, okay, which parts of that? Because we have things they don't have. Right? So which parts of that would we need to adopt to really accelerate who we would be? And for me, technology and nationwide referral network were a really big thing, especially in the luxury space. Us being a luxury brand, we have homeowners that are home collectors. And so to be pigeonholed to one market and kind of typecast and not have that ability to refer out and build relationships felt like you could still do it for sure. But again, it's longhand. Right? It's like, I'm going to go fly into Nebraska and meet the top agents there. I mean, like, as an independent, how do you do it in a efficient way, right? So I started really asking myself these questions, and then I went, okay, Gary's in one bank, but in the luxury space, who would I consider as a brand that would be good for me and my agents? Because I'm going to still go work there and be a practitioner. And I met with Engel and Volker. I met with Coldwell Banker. I met with C21. I had a brief call with Sotheby's. I had a couple follow-up calls with Corcoran.
No, you were reaching out to them, or they're reaching
It was both.
Both combination
both ways.
In the last 2 years.
In the last 2 years.
Last 2 years.
Last 2 years.
And who knew about this except you? And
Nobody in my just my partners.
Just
Annie,
your
Stephanie,
partners.
Michelle. That's it.
Wow.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, all the meetings were usually pretty private.
Did you
and an offsite kind of
did you have
environment.
them sign like NDAs and everything like that?
No, but I didn't
Oh,
share. There wasn't anything I was sharing with them other than my vision for the company or my vision for the industry, things like that. We didn't get into like forensic analysis of financials and things like that until there was one or two. I guess there were two of those, and those were once we did that. There were NDAs, but otherwise, for the most part, no. They were like, and it was because once I got. Here's what I heard. Guess what I heard? I heard them pitching me. So brokerage headmaster.
Yeah, the executives, right.
Pitching me the independent agent brokerage the same way you and I would pitch an agent. They all said the same thing.
Their name.
They all said the same thing.
Yeah.
You want to work with us? We have the best agents.
Yeah.
We have the best technology. We have the farthest reach, and we have the highest production. Come work with us. They all said exactly the same thing. And by the way, the majority of them, they're all franchise models. Almost all of them, with the exception of Keller, is a franchise model. So Sotheby's, Corcoran, anything Realogy, Corcoran, that's all Realogy. They're all franchise models. So in Arizona, they have a 6% franchise fee in addition to whatever your split is, right? And then, Engel and Volker, there were some variations there and on down the line. But when I was done, I was like, I can't opt my agents into a significantly worse compensation model. That's one major challenge. I can't do that, even no matter what they would pay me or how much money I would make, right? And the brand, there needs to be a brand. There needs to be leadership. If I walk my agents into a leadership platform that isn't synonymous with what we've built and the way that we have attention on the agent, then we're in trouble. So long story short, I went, none of those work. I ended up being on a panel with Sean Zimmerman, who's the CEO of Compass Arizona. I'd heard nothing but amazing things about him. A lot of it was like, you guys would be friends. You guys are a lot alike. You guys are, and I was like, no one's like me, being funny. But I ended up being on a panel with him, and we were talking about breath work and meditation and Kundalini, and we just went on our own path on this panel where I'm like asking him questions and he's asking me questions.
People are like,
what is going on?
Talking about.
And when we were done, I was like, this dude's the real deal. And
Interesting.
so we ended up having a coffee, a month or two later. And we started talking about crazy ideas like starting our own MLS and all kinds of crazy stuff that just was, fun banter. And then finally I was like, hey, I just want to throw out a soft conversation to you that, if you ever wanted to work together, I think based on who I know you are, I don't know a lot about launch right now, just my competitive nature, all the things I would say why you
But you
wouldn't
guys
want
are
to work.
competitors there, right?
We were number one, number two competitors.
Right,
Like, it would be Ivan Drago and Rocky,
But you know the management of launch, right? I mean,
Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
Okay,
Yeah, I knew the designated broker. I tried to recruit her
yeah.
as an agent at
Yeah,
one point,
yeah,
Lexi, and Sean. I knew from him from afar. That was it. And then I knew the top agents. I mean, I competed against Chris and Robert, all those guys and gals, and so it was one of those things where I was like, okay, leadership-wise, first of all, they had become launch-powered by Compass already. And if there was ever a nationwide company I was attracted to their brand only, it was Compass. Okay. So then for me, it was like getting to meet Sean and understand who he was as a leader. That really started kind of a dating conversation, if you will. And it just like he and I were, going to dinner with his wife and my fiance and like really getting to know each other on a personal level. And then it started going like, hey, are you really interested in this conversation, accelerating this conversation? And I had a few kind of, when I say non-negotiables, everything's negotiable, but pretty close to non-negotiable things, which were really, leadership, compensation for our agents, my executive team having an opportunity, and then some things built around really what it meant for me personally in the business, some economic and some time commitment. And said, if we can get close on most of these things, I think you might be the fit. And you might be the only fit. If it doesn't work there, I don't think we're going anywhere. We just double down and figure it out. I even had an idea at one point that I would sell the company to the agents, that I knew it was no longer my spot. I was no longer the leader of that group of people.
Yeah.
We had all grown to this end of a relationship. I needed to go do other things, and they needed a new leader. They needed a new, I describe it emotionally as it's the closest thing to what I think adoption would feel like, where like I love my child unconditionally. I'm so proud of everything we created. But when I learned what Keller had, right, at that time, at least on a national level, that it just, whether it's being deployed, in my opinion, well or not, when I got to look behind this curtain, I went, I can either go try and recreate some of those things, which would require raising capital and all those kinds of things, or I can just find a new parent, a new family that could accelerate my agents into that environment with an equal or better brand, with equal or better leadership, with the same leadership they've been used to, with me still having a responsibility, not a distinct role, with compensation being protected. And now that open source is that they get to go run with the number one producing luxury agents in the state. I mean, they launched us more $3 million transactions than any company in the state. Together, we would instantly be the number one luxury brand in the business.
Yeah.
And it would offer me an opportunity to be able to go do what it is I'm supposed to do in the world while leaving my agents and our team in the best hands to grow their future in the business forward.
Yeah.
And that's how it came to be.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you're comfortable, discussing terms and all of that stuff, but I mean, typically like the size of your brokerage, right? Like, what would be the multiple on something like that? Let's say, for example, if you were to sell it, and I know like there are companies that are kind of like merge, i.e. like get absorbed, and there's really not that much, in terms of the multiple given. Like in your situation, again, you don't have to go into the details and everything like that. Like what type of a multiple are we talking about?
Yep. So I can't go into the details, right? Contractually, I can't go into the details. However, I'll share with you that industry norm in a good, healthy market, not a crazy market. Okay. I mean, I've heard stories of 2018-19 when Compass was coming on the scene hot, that there were 4, 5, and 6 multiples. Okay. Like I've heard those stories. Don't know if they're true or not, but I heard that stuff. In a good, healthy market, a 3 multiple for any good business in our industry is kind of what you would talk about as industry standard.
EBITDA, on the earnings.
EBITDA, you got it, would be a 3 multiple.
Got you. Yep. Okay, got it. Okay, interesting. All right. So what's next for you, man?
What's next for me? It's interesting. If you asked me that 3 days ago, so I went in my office as things were coming to a head, and I was in this very manic thinking space. Like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? Like, I had that feeling in my body. And that feeling of what am I going to do next, I wrote down on this, I have a big piece of tag board on my desk that I just write ideas down on. And I wrote down, I'm the world's greatest public speaker. Okay. Now, why I wrote that down was, it was the end result of a question of, what do I do today, every day in my job, that I would do for free? And I had a few things that came up. And then I said, what is something I do in my job every day that if I could do it at the level I want to do it, like I could feel the feeling of what it would feel like to do it at the level I can think of in my mind, that I would pay a big ticket to do it. So like, what would be that number? Well, Brian, if I could put you on stage with a microphone in your ear to give your best speech, presentation, talk ever, you light the room completely on fire, yep, and there's 20,000 people in the room, how much would you pay for that? And the number is $100,000. I might write a check for $100,000 for that experience. I know what that would feel like to me, right? So in that moment, I was like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing in the world, right? So I wrote that down. Now, the reason I wrote it that way is not because I believe I'm going to be the world's greatest public speaker. What it was it's a way of authorizing myself into being a pro, a professional, an elite athlete in a way. And if you write down world's greatest, now you have to ask the question of, what does it take? And now I get to start with my diet, health and wellness, my peer group, my friends, my spiritual connection, all of these things. If I'm going to be the greatest, now I'm going to start laying the bricks. I know I'll get close, right? But that was the thing. So that was 3 days ago. 3 days ago, I would say to you, I'm going to be the world's greatest keynote speaker. Doesn't mean arrogantly I'm going to be the world's greatest. It just means between you and I as my friend, I'm starting to lay the bricks for what it means to be the world's greatest.
I'm going to be intentional and focused on it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's that. What else is interesting is, I'm going to go more kind of metaphysical, philosophical. One of my great friends is Ricky Williams, the former running back for Texas Longhorns, New Orleans Saints, Ravens, Miami Dolphins. And he's a spiritual teacher more for me than he is. I don't even really know him as a football player. I mean, he talks about it every once in a while. But when I called him post my divorce in a pretty dark time where I was really lost. And I asked him, Rick, I've taken your wisdom and I'm following it, but like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. And he was like, sit quietly. Do you know who you're talking to, Rick? I don't know how to sit quietly. And he's like, look, man, you have too much noise in your life. There's too much consumption. And you can't get the awareness of what you need in your life until you're willing to block everything else out. I go, I know, Rick, but I'm a doer. I only know how to do. Like, can you tell me what I'm supposed to do? I need to do something. I need to keep myself moving. And he said, clean out your garage. I was like, okay. He kind of chuckled. He has this like Santa Claus laugh. And he goes, Brian, when your life is consumed and full, there's no room for anything new to come in. If you clean out your garage, you make room for new things to come in. I was like, yeah. And he goes, I literally want you to do that. And I was like, great,
literally
go clean out my garage. It became a metaphor for how I would live. Then what? He's like, clean out your kitchen, clean out your closet. Like, go clean out your life so you can make room for new things to come in. Fast forward. What happens is, before I fast forward, when you clean everything out, if I clean out my garage, do I know what I'm going to fill it in with?
No.
If I clean out my closet, do I know for sure the shirts and suits that I'm going to? No. But I clean it out knowing that something new is going to come in. I just don't know what yet, okay? This is a metaphor for life. The ultimate clean out my closet was the brokerage. It was the scariest walk of my life, period, like ever. Letting people down, being judged, the industry having something to say about me, my partners letting them down, putting them in a not good position, like all of these fears for me. And then naturally, what am I going to fill in this big void with, right? I don't know. But 2 years ago, I started learning that when you start cleaning your closet out and you start cleaning your garage out, my life is so abundant right now. I mean, I'm in love with literally the perfect person. Like, she is built for me. And by the way, remember how I told you to build your perfect executive? I did the exact same thing with her. I could show you a 4-page journal entry where I wrote out what she's like in intimacy, what she's like with family, what she's like in communication, how she loves herself more than me. Like, it is, before we met, perfectly spelled out. Okay?
How did you guys meet?
We met through the industry. Yeah, she's an agent.
She's an agent.
She's an agent, yeah. And so I have that. So same thing applies. So now in my life, I'm going to create this major void. I'm going to clean out my closet, this thing that I know I'm just holding on to old energy, that I'm not serving them, right? The agents, the way that I promised them I would serve them. And as soon as I do that, you step into a relationship of obligation, right? I'm now going to work every day because I made a promise to them, not because this is what lights my soul on fire, right? And I heard a saying once, which is obligation is the first step to resentment. Okay. So as soon as I start operating out of obligation, I'm on my way to resenting it. Okay. And I was unwilling to allow myself to get to a place where I would resent these people and this business that built so much beautiful abundance for me. So there was this thing of, I'm going to take this ultimate walk. Right. And Ricky was definitely a leader for me in this is the thing you need to do based on the things that I shared with him about my life. And so I did that. In a fight or flight mode of what I'm going to do next, I wrote down world's greatest speaker. In the last 4 days, literally the last 4 days, I have been shepherded into, and definitely along my way, I said, I love real estate. I'm good at real estate. Working with, unreasonable emotional buyers and sellers is not what I'm built for. If you want stats and data and numbers and strategy and execution and deliverables, I'm your guy. But if we just want to throw pie in the sky stuff and then you want to beat me up for 3 months to sell your house I can't sell, I'm out of that game. What would you do, Brian? I believe I want to get into development, right? Now, does that mean be a developer? Not necessarily yet. But acquisition, I'm a great acquisition guy. So land acquisition could be great. I've got great builder relationships. I've got great developer relationships, great money relationships. But as I exited brokerage, it was really about being the world's greatest public speaker. But in the last 4 days, I've had massive opportunities in the land acquisition development space come to me. Phone ring. Hi, Brian. We want you to be our broker on a 800-acre parcel in Arizona. Like, why? Why? I've never brokered a large land deal in my life, ever, right? And it's that moment when you realize that when you're willing, you made a comment earlier, at the beginning of the pod, that you said, why, it was something about, how did you know it was time to do this when most people or a lot of people walk back to what's safe?
Yeah. It's about when we get to a specific hurdle in our life or a major challenge in our life, most of the people retreat.
Yeah, I read this in The Way of the Superior Man.
Interesting.
There's a book, phenomenal book about masculine and feminine energy where we talk about going to the edge and then people retreat back from the edge to safety. Even if they're miserable, they retreat back to safety because they know it. What I'm sharing with you is I was willing to jump off the edge. That's what I did. You're supposed to. I even went so far when I was reading that book to believe that sometimes when people take their own life, it's because they're so scared of jumping off the edge and they're so miserable in their safe existence that they take another path out, the third path out. What I did with brokerage was I made the most honorable decision for myself and the people that I led to say, I'm no longer your leader. And if I'm the best human I can possibly be in the world, I'm going to jump off the edge. I'm going to free up my garage. I'm going to clean out my closet. I'm going to open it up not knowing what I'm going to fill back in with. But I'll tell you this, if I'm laying the foundation to be the world's best, which is in all those unique areas of my life, what isn't possible? Nothing. Now I just have to trust that unknowing and that my commitment to what's next is going to fill in with all the things that I'm showing myself or showing God, whatever your belief system is, that I'm up for the game. As soon as I show God I'm up for the game, God's going to go, all right, you're ready. Here you go. Like, this is what's next. And whether it's world's greatest public speaker or it's land acquisition master or developer, I still don't know. But are those things trying so hard to fill in the gap, the void? Yes. And the most beautiful thing that I'm doing right now for myself and in my life with a little bit of financial security is saying no. Saying no. I have more opportunity coming in my life in the last 2 weeks. Well, people see they perceive that I just got a big payday, right? Okay. Hey, dude, I got a deal. You want to invest in this deal? Hey, I got a deal. You want to invest in this deal? And by the way, 2 months ago, these would have been the best deals I've ever heard of. Now it's like, well, hold on. If all the deals are coming my way, I get to be selective now. Which ones do I want to be selective about? Who am I going to work with? Am I aligned with the leadership? Am I aligned with the plan? Can I learn something new? Does this serve these key components of the brick-laid foundation that I have in my life? And if they don't, No. By the way, that same rule of designing your partner, designing your business executive, designing your future life, when you're hyper specific, the number one thing it does is take all the emotion out of decision making, right? Hey, Brian, I've got an opportunity for you to make $20 million, but you have to travel 40 weeks a year.
No. Thank
No,
you.
I could look how quickly you said no.
No.
I said 20 million, Alan. What did you say?
No, thank you.
No, why?
No.
Because I know very clearly what life I want to live.
Yep.
$20 million is not 2 million to 4 million to 6 million to 8 million. You know, when you get in that money space, the incremental difference, it doesn't feel any different.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel any different,
No.
right? And so this thing for me is those short designs and that design of my life of what's next. What's next right now for me is number one, I don't know. I have two things I'm excited about. Right? But the thing I have to do, in fact, so much so that November for me is November. No November. I've told my significant other, my Nancy, and I've told my kids I am saying no to 100% of everything in November.
So what are you doing?
I don't know. Nothing. No. Come to coffee with me. No. Lunch. No. But Brian, I got a deal. No. Right? And it's a part of me breaking my muscle memory. That like, gotta go check the deal, gotta serve value. This person did that for me in the past, so I gotta do this for them now.
But Brian, I got a $6 million listing that I want you to list.
Yeah, I'll give it to Adam.
No.
No, I wouldn't.
You're saying no, but
No.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
there you go.
That's powerful.
That's what's next for me right now. Yeah. Just sit quietly. That's my Ricky. My Ricky is just sit quietly. Right now, I've made more noise in my life and more noise for others in the last 20 years. It's just time for me to be quiet. And just listen. Just listen. Yeah.
I love it, man.
Yep.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate your wisdom, sharing your journey, inspiring people.
Thank you.
Man, I feel like we're going to do this again.
I hope so.
The next chapter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
right
for
back at
everything,
you.
man.
As gracious as you were.
you're-
In my intro, I've looked up to you too, man. We have, there's mutual respect both ways. Your reputation in the industry is a lot what I think people say about me, right? You say your name and people go, such a great guy, does great things, absolute killer. It's just, you never hear anybody say anything bad about you no matter what. You know what
Thanks,
I mean?
bro.
So I think we can make a difference, so you let me know where I can keep adding and I will.
Awesome. For our audience,
Yep.
if let's say they want to reach out to you,
Yep.
minus a month of November, so
That's right. You got it.
don't call them
Thank you.
or message them. But social media,
Yeah, Instagram.
IG,
Brian C. North, Brian, middle initial C, last name North on Instagram. That's the best way. I probably communicate more on Instagram than I do in text message or email at this point. So
Right on.
keep it easy.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate
Thank
you. You know it.
Hey, thanks for listening to our conversation. I hope you like it. Now, if you want to see more of the same type of content on your feed, here's what you got to do. Hit subscribe or hit like, and hopefully I'll see you again in the future.